Are you afraid of black men?
What I'm afraid of is that after he, say, uses his knife, puts up against my throat, takes my money, he will then take another moment, this is my fear, to do something even worse to me, to pay back what my people have done to his people.
Yeah, right.
Peace! And it's episode 7 of Hip Hop Vinyl Reviews. And for episode 7, I decided I'm going to review one of the Gods albums. Not because I'm being selfish and I like to talk about Jersey hip hop all the time, which I do, but because it's the 7th. And then also I just picked this piece up, in surprise from Econo Jam Records in Oakland. A sealed copy of Wise Intelligence's first solo album out of, I think, 3, maybe 4 if you include the Blessed Be the Poor ? Mixtape. And that would be Wise Intelligent, Killin U for Fun. We're talking 1996 Trenton, New Jersey when we're looking at this record. And what I'll do first is I'll just give you a general review of the album. I'll tell you what I think. If you want to seek one of these out, they're not super easy to find. But it's worth getting. I'll tell you that right from the jump, and I'll give you a little analysis of it too. And after that, I think I want to talk a little bit more about an interesting story that lies behind the fact that this is on Profile Records, as was the group from which Wise comes, which is Poor Righteous Teachers, who did their first record on Profile in 1990, Holy Intellect. And you can also go all the way back to, I think it was 88, 89, when Time to Say Peace came out on vinyl. On a Trenton label, which is Northside Productions, and that's kind of the record that led to the Profile deal. And Profile's an interesting label with an interesting hip-hop history that's worth talking about. Anyway, Killin U for Fun is, to me, my favorite of the Wise Intelligent solo album releases. Not to say that I dislike the ones that came after it, but I really love the production from Tony D on here, who obviously was a friend of mine, but beyond that, he's also one of the biggest legends to me that came out of New Jersey. That with, of course, Diamond D. You can name a lot of good artists from New Jersey, but Tony D as a producer and Poor Righteous Teachers as a group are arguably among the best. When we think about Jersey hip-hop. This project is fantastic. I mean, in general, I love the production. Tone's production's not sparse, but it really leaves a lot of room for Wise to show off his different, multiple talents, that range from chanting to rapping to, recounting old songs. Like, he even does a careless whisper, reprise kind of thing. Trenton, New Jersey was a force in hip-hop, which I could say, started in the late 80s and ended around this time that this record was released. So the interesting thing about Killin U for Fun is it almost serves as one of the bookends for the Trenton era of hip-hop music, that ended around 96, 97. It's not to say no good artists live in Trenton currently or have ever come out with mixtapes or, CDs, because there have been a few. But there's not been wax. There's not been a hip-hop environment that was actually known on a national level the way it was during the Poor Righteous Teacher years, which included other artists. Back in the day, they were popping up all the time. I mean, and most of the time, the person on the boards was Tone, so Boulevard Mossy, and you're thinking about records like this that came out, You Can't Escape the Hypeness, just a banger, that helped define the Trenton sound. You got Almighty and KD, Trent, I don't know, where are we from? These guys, Suicide Posse. I had, group after group, artist after artist coming out back to back, one after the other for a period of a couple of years, and then radio silence for fucking 20 years. Things like the non-available on the album, Self-Style Wisdom on the Poor Righteous Teachers single. Talent was beyond many other Jersey artists that were out at the time, and stands right up there with the best of them of all time, and that's Redman, Tretch, Queen Latifah, anybody you want to mention included. Wise is right there on their level. Started by, I believe, Corey Robinson, Profile Records. They were facing bankruptcy and all kinds of problems earlier on until, I believe it was the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Genius record that kind of started digging them out of it. When you think Profile and old school hip hop, you think about Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. You think about Run DMC, one of their biggest acts. The only reason I ever picked up DJ Quick's first album is because it was on Profile. And this is all late 80s, early 90s, right? The centerpiece of conscious hip-hop at the time. And these guys had hits. They were making money. It wasn't like this was running a shack or somebody's basement. Profile Records was a major label. And you think back to the actual history of Wise, And Tony D had already been in the game since 1987 or before. I mean, he pressed up his production was on a YZ album that was pressed up in 87. You know, Poor Righteous Teachers debuted it and come out until 1990. So a lot of individuals that are involved in this record were involved since the beginning. I see names like Kevin Glickman, who I also know, haven't seen in a while. Him and Tony D were affiliated with one another, and as a result, a lot of the records that came out of Trenton, New Jersey at that time were underneath that umbrella or alongside with that camp. It's important to understand that when you're trying to find a piece of wax from Trenton at any time between 87 and 97, chances are it's going to have Tony D's name on it, possibly Kevin Glickman's, and most likely it's on Profile or Contract Records. So that piece of music history ended right around 1996, the same time that this Killin U for Fun album came out. You got to picture, you know, Wise's introduction to the world, partly by Red Alert spinning that Time to Say Peace record so much. You know, and you got a landscape of hip-hop, which has some conscious material out there already, obviously. Public Enemy, X-Clan, others. But when Wise comes, he expresses it in a way that's just got a little bit more of a magnetic style, and it's something that's a little funkier and a little bit more performance-oriented. And the way he's spitting rhymes, although it is reminiscent of De La's plug tuning in some ways, the language he's using and the 120 references he's making and how he's making them are just a style that nobody else had at the time. And then Wise after that just went and he fleshed out his style even more and started demonstrating his talents in other ways. And you know, he blossomed there during this time. But very simply at the beginning, when you're a kid that's been watching Yo MTV Raps, or you're a kid in Trenton, or you're a kid in the city, in the suburbia, and he comes out the same year all this fuckery like MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice is out, and he comes with straight poetry. I self-lauded my pen once again, sitting here at the tear up thought, meditating on the hip to the hip must hop as I drop my style. I let the lessons be taught. All praises due to the arm, leg on the head to Allah if you're mentally dead. But if you're self-wise to the knowledge of self, then you may comprehend the great truth that I've said. And he just blew people's fucking minds, man. And you know, the whole album is like that, you know? So they released another 2 Poor Righteous Teachers album. One, and I believe it was 91 or 92. I'm not quite sure when the second Pure Poverty came out. And then after that, you got Black Business. And then, you know, and it would be a little while before the final full-length Poor Righteous Teacher album that I'm aware of came out, which is New World Order. And between that, sandwiched in, you got this Wise Intelligent solo project where he's, I guess, not working at the time with Culture Freedom and Father Shaheed, rest in peace. And, you know, a lot of the production is Tony's. The only thing that's really missing from this being a Poor Righteous Teachers album is Father Shaheed and Culture Freedom, who did a lot of backup, maybe helped a little with the production arrangements, and you know, Father Shaheed, obviously the DJ. So it almost, you know, is curious to why there would be a solo album. When it first came out, cover was incredibly controversial, and you're going to think when you're sitting listening to this that Wise is going to address these historical pinpoints like the lynchings in the early 20th century, and you know, where the photograph was taken, but he doesn't. I mean, he sticks to the script. I mean, a lot of this is about his flow. Some of it, I mean, he addresses things like black on black crime. He's got a chick song where he's talking to a Rastafarian girl and kicking game to her, I guess telling a story about her, you know. Spoiler alert, there must have been some trouble in paradise because it wasn't Shaquilla. That's an interesting history in itself, you know, the beat for Shaquilla that Tony D made was ripped off by Heavy D and the boys. They settle out of court for it. Early on, you know, you got OPP, you got the Naughty by Nature beat ripped straight off of Adam's Nightmare, which is another Tony D record. I call the record a bookend Trenton hip-hop in 96 because it really is the end of when the greatest records were being made out of Trenton. You know, we already talked about a lot of them. There's a lot more where that came from. If you want to talk about Crusaders for real hip-hop, I mean, it goes on forever, but it just kind of comes to a screeching halt. You know, the Profile and the Contract Records thing is out the door. I know because I sat down with Tony D at Profile Records after the release of this record. It's the first time I've ever owned the vinyl, but it's not my first listen. And, you know, Tony started doing what a lot of us did. He went off and he did records at Grand Central. And he did vinyls overseas. The first record Tone pressed up after the 96 era, when the bookend happened, was with me, which was on his first release on Cha-Ching Records, which is my Respect This, That's What's Up vinyl. A lot of these songs ended up on my G.O.D. album, which is mostly produced by Tony D and was released in 1998, as was this vinyl. So in a world where Tupac is dead and Foxy Brown is the ill Nana and and the Fugees are, you know, coming with Ready or Not Here I Come, it's really hard for a record like this to stand out, even though to me it's an amazing hip-hop achievement. The production alone, fantastic. Even the songs Tone didn't produce are bangers. And Wise is at the top of his game as a performer. It's catchy as hell. It's, believe it or not, despite the cover, despite the general theme, he's actually killing you for fun in another way. He's just demonstrating the skills and showing and proving once again that he's one of the top lyricists to ever come out of New Jersey. It's a definite add-on. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you guys can't find this record, because I believe that the release wasn't exactly as widespread or as many as Holy Intellect or the following albums. It's a damn shame, because after this you wouldn't really see Trenton, New Jersey, or even Wise Intelligent really on the national radar anymore when it came to hip-hop, or international. You know, a lot of international record collectors and hip-hop heads, of course, love and respect Poor Righteous Teachers, but Wise's later projects like The Talented Timothy Taylor and, you know, Blessed Be the Poor mixtape that he released off of Intelligent Music never really got the exposure that you got with Profiles. I was talking to a guy, you know, from Trenton and from Donnelly Holmes Projects, where, you know, it used to be called the Vineland during the Rock This Funky Joint days when 5%ers ruled the roost in the area. And, you know, I asked him about the Vineland and how it was going, and he looked at me like I had 10 heads. And I said, you live in Donnelly Holmes, right? And he's like, yeah, they just boarded up another building and you know, same old shit, da-da-da. I was like, yeah, well, do you remember a time when Donnelly Holmes Projects was referred to as Divine Land, Poor Righteous Teachers? And he looked at me like he'd never heard it before in his life. And that, to me, spoke volumes, because the guy who I bought this record from knew everything about Wise Intelligent. So I just think that after having a career where you're inextricably tied with a white producer like Tony D, I hope that Wise is off somewhere and has a view of his career where he looks back and he smiles at having had the opportunity to be somebody in his young 20s that got a chance to travel the world and affect the lives and the minds of millions of kids when the light was shined on him. And I wish him all the luck in the future. It was something that people talked about. It was something that people raised their eyebrows at when one of their main dudes that's responsible for putting together the songs they were releasing on record was Tony D, a white guy, and these guys were, you know, conscious and had knowledge of self in a time where people really held you to the standard of what your behavior was like, not just as an artist but as a person. You'd be judged based on the way you lived your life and if that lined up with what you were saying on the mic. And having this white producer was a risk. It was a risk for Tony D. It was a risk for Wise Intelligent and Poor Righteous Teachers, and it was an awkward relationship from the outside looking in. But I'm telling you, that awkward relationship created some of the best music that ever came out of not just Trenton, New Jersey, but the East Coast. I would definitely recommend picking up Wise Intelligent, Killin U for fun. I'd pick up all Wise's releases if I were you. I would definitely pick up the first 3 Poor Righteous Teachers album and then the 4th that came after this. And I would pick up everything I could get my hands on from Trenton, New Jersey from the late 80s and early 90s. For you, if you want to see a review of your favorite vinyl, you know what you got to do, man. Email me at lovblog@gmail.com. That's loveblog. Make your requests and get that motherfucker in the mail. Alright, y'all. Peace.